You're listening to the micro version of the Savage Lovecast. www.savagelovecast.com.
If you're stuck in a relationship quandary, or if you're looking for sexual harmony, well, there's nothing you can't ask on the Savage Lovecast.
I get a lot of email. I rarely read emails on the Savage Lovecast. Emails are for the column, Savage Love, for the Savage Love letter of the day. But I wanted to read this email. We're going to be talking later in the show with Mistress Matisse about s.e.x, a new law passed by Congress, not yet signed by Donald Trump as of this recording, that holds websites criminally liable for ads posted to them by people doing sex work and lumps all people doing sex work into the sex trafficking victim category, whether someone is doing sex work of their own free will or not. After s.e.x made it out of Congress, even before Trump signed it into law, which everyone expects him to do probably this week, Craigslist pulled down its personal ads. Craigslist had already pulled down its escorting ads. And shortly after Craigslist pulled down its personal ads, Backpage was seized and shuttered by the federal government. Backpage is a classified site where people did advertise to do sex work. And I got an email after Backpage was yanked down just yesterday, and I wanted to share it with all of you, particularly with anyone out there who thinks that everyone doing sex work is a victim of trafficking who needs to be saved or rescued, particularly anyone who thinks that it is a good thing that websites where escorts could advertise their services are being yanked down. Dear Dan, I have been doing body rubs for a dozen years or so now, advertising first on Craigslist, then on Backpage. With no way for new clients to find me now, I'm desperately afraid I'll be homeless soon. I give hand jobs for a living. I don't take my clothes off or let them touch me on the front. I maintain an office in a nice building for safety and professionalism, but now the rug has been yanked out from under me and I have no idea how I'm going to keep up with my bills. I'm just sick about this and truly frightened about what I'll do for income. I'm a licensed massage therapist, but LMT jobs will not cut it to cover both my rent plus living expenses. It's why I got into the happy ending, and I hate that expression, business in the first place. What am I going to do? What many sex workers are going to do is be forced out onto the streets. Some will be forced onto the dark web. There was a study done by Baylor University economics professor Scott Cunningham that found when Craigslist created its erotic services section, when Craigslist began allowing people to post escort ads, the rate of female homicides, and I'm quoting here from a piece at the Huffington Post, in U.S. cities fell by 17% when they excluded crimes in which the victim knew her killer, such as domestic violence. The researchers concluded that sex workers who advertised online spent less time on the streets, where they were more likely to face dangerous situations. This is what driving sex workers offline means. It means women and men are going to die as a result. People doing sex work of their own free will and consensually, which is the overwhelming majority of sex work that is done in this country, and people who are being trafficked. Both groups will be at increased risk of death. Sex worker and sex worker rights activist Mistress Matisse, longtime friend of the show, she is here today to talk with us about s.e.x and its impact, also its impact not just on the sex work community, but on all of us. And we're going to keep talking about s.e.x because s.e.x is an assault on all of our freedoms, and it is also an attack on women, primarily women, doing sex work, who are going to die. Women are going to die because they're being driven offline where sex workers had some measure of control and some safety, could screen their clients, could share information about dangerous clients and dangerous situations. This is a disaster for the sex work community. And anybody out there who supports s.e.x and supports driving sex workers offline in an effort to end sex work, it's not going to end sex work. It is, however, going to end some sex workers. Again, Mistress Matisse is here. We're going to talk about it a little bit more later. We will also be talking about this a lot on future shows. Right now, though, your calls, tons of your cues, lots of my A's, not just about s.e.x, coming up on today's show.
This episode of the Lovecast is brought to you by the good folks at Squarespace. They make it easy to build a beautiful website, blog, or online store. Head on over to squarespace.com/savage for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
This episode of the Savage Lovecast is brought to you by Everlane, luxury basic clothing and accessories made at ethical factories without those retail markups. For free shipping and to support the Lovecast, go to everlane.com/savage. ThredUp is the world's largest online thrift store with over 35,000 brands at up to 90% off retail price. It's the style secret over 1 million women use to refresh their closets. Get an extra 30% off your first order. Go to thredup.com/savage. That's THREDUP.com/savage for an extra 30% off today.
Hey, Dan. I am a almost 30-year-old woman, straight. I just started dating this guy, and we went to his apartment to fool around. Going to my place is unfortunately not a possibility. So we went to his apartment to fool around. He's a neat freak, super clean, but I think he doesn't use sheets on his bed. We were like on top of like the comforter, so I don't know for sure, but I just have no idea how to bring this up because that's a giant no-go. And I feel bad because it's clearly like a bachelor's apartment, and he's tried to decorate, and the bed's no good. Don't know how to nicely tell him that I will not be getting in his bed or on his bed or anywhere near his bed again if there are not sheets.
So, single guy, bachelor pad, and you were an unexpected sex guest. What do you think is likelier? That this is a dude who is so poorly socialized that he doesn't use sheets. He just has a mattress, no sheets, a comforter on top of it, and he lays down on a dirty stained mattress covered with ancient jizz stains, piss dribble, 100,000 million dead skin cells every night. Or he doesn't have a lot of sheets because he's a bachelor and he's a guy, and maybe he was between sheets, or maybe his sheets were in the dryer. His only set of sheets were in the wash, and he hadn't yet put them back on the bed. And like a lot of people, maybe once in a while he sleeps on the mattress without the sheets when he doesn't remember to clean them, or they're still wet and they're not in the dryer yet. Or he doesn't sleep with sheets. Which do you think is likelier? I think the between clean sheets. I think the between sheets doesn't have enough sheets. I think that is likelier than the he's a monster and an animal who doesn't ever use sheets. Seems to me that it is the sort of thing that you can just bring up. If you want to seem crazy, you can bring it up now, or you can wait, and you can go back to his place. And before you have sex, you can peel back the comforter and peek underneath. And if there aren't sheets, you can ask the dude a direct question about it. Don't you have sheets? And then see what he says. Hopefully next time, since he knows you're coming and it's not going to be a surprise, the bed will be nicely prepped for you, and we'll have sheets on it. Mystery solved. You don't even know that there weren't sheets. You fucked on the comforter on top of the bed. You're making this assumption that there weren't sheets. On precious little evidence, I have to say. You don't want to seem like the crazy one. Right now, you kind of do. To me, seem like the crazy one. Give the guy the benefit of the doubt. Assume there were sheets under that comforter. If there weren't, if you got a pretty good look at the side of the mattress and there were no sheets, assume that his sheets were in the wash. And say nothing until you have evidence. Hard, dead skin cell covered, piss dribbled on evidence that the dude doesn't use sheets. And then you should address it directly. And by address it directly, I don't mean passive aggressively offer to take him sheet shopping like your mom visiting him at the dorms. Just straight up tell him what you told us. If he wants to keep fucking you on that bed or any other bed, he's going to have to invest in some goddamn sheets.
Hi, Dan and the Tech Savvy At-Risk Youth. I live in an East Coast city. I'm a gay man in my 20s, and I have a problem. I've had a really hard time dating in the city that I'm in. I had one boyfriend in college, but we broke up when I moved to the city for work, and he didn't want to do long distance. And I just feel like with work and school and hobbies and keeping up with friends, it's really, really hard to find time for dating. Now, I have a friend who lives in another city on the other side of the country, and he and I have a really great rapport, We web chat all the time and watch TV together, and we just had like a week-long hangout vacation situation that was really, really great. But I don't think that there's really any chance that he would move to DC or I would move to his location, because we both have family and jobs tying us to where we are. And I don't know that I'm really that interested in doing something long distance. I'm just wondering what you think the cutoff is, because really he and I get along so much better than anyone that I have met through dating apps in my city, because we're college friends, we have similar interests. He's just a really nice and good person, but I'm not sure what to do. It seems a little bit like I'm just quitting dating because it's hard and doing something that isn't really what I want, this long distance type thing. Yeah, so if you have any advice for me, I'd appreciate it.
Tried to call you back, couldn't get you. Was curious as to whether during that week that you two were together and you hung out, were you fucking? How was the sex? Is this just a really passionate, intense friendship? Or if you happen to be in the same place and at the same time, is there a sexual connection there that's just as intense and comfortable as your social connection, as your friendship? And if so, man, that is not something to set aside lightly, just because geographically you aren't at the same place at this time. You're young, circumstances change, new jobs and opportunities present themselves, particularly if you go looking for them, because you want to be in a particular place where someone else is. Doesn't sound like you've discussed this with him. Sounds like you're assuming he wouldn't want to move to be closer to you because you don't want to move to be closer to him, and you're projecting onto him reasons he might not want to move that are actually the reasons you don't want to move. And you haven't sussed him out, extended the invitation, given him the option to even consider moving closer to you, if that is indeed what you want. You say that this is easier, your relationship with him. You have this comfort and this rapport. That could be partly due to the fact that these stakes are really low here, that you both rely on each other, and you have it in your heads you can't be together, and you aren't technically together. So there's not a lot of risk in your interactions, and you're able to relax and be really comfortable around each other. My concern is if what you want is a romantic partner and a sexual partner, and you want intimacy and you want someone present, physically present in your life, in your apartment, in your bed, in your mouth, the amount of time and energy and focus that you are pouring into this relationship that may not ever be those things, if you're not willing to move and he's not willing to move, is preventing you from getting out there and doing the work of finding someone you could have those things with. He is right now, this person is meeting a lot of your social and emotional needs, and you therefore have less incentive to put yourself out there and do the ugly business of dating and churning through the apps and sorting through the pile and finding the guys that you click with in the same way you click with this guy about TV shows and about chit chat and sexually, and they happen to be in the same city where you are too. So if he's never going to move to where you are and you're never going to move to where he is, I would encourage you to dial it back. If not, go cold turkey for just a little bit, a couple of months, so that you aren't content to lay around your apartment Skyping with someone while you watch Jessica Jones together, so that you get out of the house and you feel deprived and you feel like your needs aren't being met, and you get on the apps or you get in the bars or you reach out to friends that you haven't reached out to in a while and you ask them if you can go hang out, run around a little bit, throw a house party, have everybody over for a game night or a card night to your place or their place or something. Because I want you to have it all, girl. I want you to have that person that you can hang with and watch TV with and be on the couch with at the same time, not be on your own couches at opposite ends of the country and on Skype at the same time. Good luck.
Do you need to build a website for your business or for a creative or political project you have going on? Building a website does not have to be tedious or unpleasant. It can be easy, and with Squarespace, it can actually be fun. Squarespace makes it a breeze to crank out a beautiful, professional-looking website or blog, or even an online store. They have templates that were created by world-class designers that you can just drop in and it looks good right away. And they have built-in e-commerce so you can sell stuff. There's nothing to patch or upgrade, and if you need help, they have 24/7 support. You can make it yourself so easily and make it stand out with Squarespace. Head on over to squarespace.com/savage for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the offer code SAVAGE to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. That's squarespace.com/savage and use the offer code SAVAGE.
Hey, Dan, longtime listener. My husband and I are bi-poly individuals living in the Midwest. My question is about my son. He's 12 years old. We are just edging into puberty. We are a sex-positive house. We discuss sex openly and freely within, normal limitations of what you should say to a 12-year-old. My question is about masturbation. He is very anxiously waiting to get the sperm, as he calls it. Is it weird for his mom to buy him some lube and just leave it by the bed, or just a random bottle of lotion? We've had some talks about it, but me being the mom, they seem kind of squirted out talking to me about it. They talk to my husband. I'm just curious, from a male perspective, is it weird to have your mom buy lube? It's not going to be like, hey, oh my God, I bought you lube. I'll just kind of discreetly leave it by the bed. But I was curious what your thoughts were on it.
Most 12-year-old boys' capacity for being mortified sexually kind of functions as a gas. It can expand to fill all available space. And that includes, kids raised in pretty sex-positive environments. There's something about the onset of puberty that panics all of us. It doesn't matter how sex-positive a household that we grew up in. We hear about sex when we're really little, when we ask where babies come from, and adults tell us what it is adults do to make babies or enjoy themselves or experience pleasure sexually together. And we're horrified and appalled. And we say, we're never going to do that. That's gross. Ick. And then along comes puberty, and suddenly we're being dragged toward that thing that we thought was so icky and gross when we heard about it by our genitals. And it can induce a little kind of sex negativity panic, even in the kid with the most sex positive parents who've been as kind of open and progressive and communicative as parents can possibly be. So, if you leave a bottle of sex lube by your son's bedside, his mortification will probably be of similar scale to the mortification you would experience if you waved your hands over the head and said, yippee, I brought you some lube, and waved a sign and had a little parade up and down your block before you presented him with a bottle of lube. My suggestion would be to stock the bathroom with appropriate lotions, Aveeno, whatever, particular viscous, gooey shampoos, whatever, and let him figure it out for himself. If your son is uncircumcised, if he has his foreskin, he may not even need lube. A lot of kids who have their foreskins masturbate by moving their foreskins back and forth across the glands and never ever use lube. But if your son is circumcised, he probably does need lube. There's all sorts of pervertible, not designed for sex lubricants in the house, and I think you should stock up on those. And you can even add a bottle to a shelf in the bathroom that he'll see, he accesses for hair goo or toothpaste or whatever else that is more of a explicit sexual lubricant. Let him stumble over it. Let him swipe it. Don't put it next to his bed. Don't have a parade. And you know what? For the 12-year-old boy, putting it next to the bed, having the parade, he will experience both as equally mortifying. Stock up the bathroom. Let him figure it out for himself. You ever feel like you have to pay a lot for crappy quality? I bet you do. At Everlane, that doesn't happen. Upgrade your go-tos and your style and make Everlane's classics your new favorites. Everlane only makes premium essentials using the finest materials without traditional markups. And they tell you their real costs, so you're never overpaying. Everlane wants you to know what you're paying for and why. They are radically transparent about every step in their process, from the materials they use to the ethical factories they work with. Because Everlane sells directly to you, their prices are 30 to 50% lower than traditional retailers. Everlane's clothes look better, cost less, and last longer. Essentials like their pullover hoodie sweatshirt are exactly what they should be: simple, stylish, and made from quality materials. The cashmere V-neck is gorgeous, and Nancy feels like a fancy business lady in her Boss boots. Everlane's timeless essentials are just what you're looking for. No frills, just quality. And right now you'll get free shipping on your first order when you go to everlane.com/savage. That's everlane.com/savage. everlane.com/savage.
Hi, Dan, Nancy, and the tech savvy at-risk youth. I am a 32-year-old cisgendered female living in the Midwest. And I had a question about blowjobs. So I like giving them, and my boyfriend doesn't like receiving them. He told me when we first started dating that when I asked him like things he was into or wasn't into, and he said he wasn't into blowjobs, which, you know, at first I was like, oh, okay, that's actually not too bad. And then, you know, I kind of realized that I liked doing it, that I feel kind of sexy doing it. And I tried prying into exactly what this was. You know, was it that the last person he was with really didn't like them, or, you know, made him feel bad about it, or was there some reason? And I've come at it every way, and he doesn't like them. And I'm wondering if this is something that I should push, and if it's okay to push, because if I were, you know, the man, and I was pushing oral sex on my partner, then that would be seen as, you know, fairly abusive behavior. And should I be pushing the issue? You know, he says he just thinks it feels kind of weird. And so I'm wondering, like, if it's something that I should, you know, say, I like doing it. Can I do it? You know, it adds lubrication. I feel kind of hot. Or is that kind of abusive behavior, and I would be sort of forcing him to do something that he didn't want to do? It's something that I strangely miss doing and didn't think that that would happen.
So when you felt like you had to suck dick, your past relationships, you weren't that excited about it? You weren't that into it? And now that you don't get to suck dick, you really miss it. You really want that dick. You really want his balls slapping your chin. I understand. I feel your pain. First, backing up, props to you guys for having a what are you into conversation where you were both empowered in that moment, or those moments while you were having those conversations, to rule anything in, rule anything out, be really honest with each other about your likes and dislikes, and shed the expectations and assumptions that people make about their sex partners based on their genders or their sexual orientations. And one of the assumptions made about men is that all men, particularly all straight men, love having their dicks sucked. And it's not necessarily true. There are guys out there who don't like oral. Not because they think their genitals are smelly or disgusting or gross, not because they had necessarily terrible experiences in the past with people who went down on them in ways that made them feel demeaned or degraded or used, but just because the sensation is too intense, or they just find it unpleasant. It doesn't work with their nerve endings and their erotic imaginations. It just doesn't work for them. And you miss it. So what should you do? Should you push? No. But you can be honest about how you feel. And I think we can be honest about how we feel about something that we would like to do that perhaps our partners don't enjoy or don't want to do, without tipping into the coercion zone, where you can say, I get that you don't like having your dick sucked. Sometimes I really miss it. I really enjoyed it. And oddly, I miss it more now than I ever thought I would, because when I was in relationships with guys who wanted blowjobs, I did it and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't until I wasn't doing it because I was somebody who didn't like it that I realized how much I enjoyed it and now how much I miss it. And then see what he has to say and draw him out. You're assuming there was trauma, that he was with some girl who made him feel bad about wanting to have his dick sucked, or gave him lousy blowjobs, or had braces or whatever, and he has this association with blowjobs that's negative, painful memories or painful physical experiences, and he can't go there anymore. And maybe that's it. And maybe you can repair that. If you had bad experiences with oral, good experiences with oral can help somebody tap into what's so great about oral. But if it's just a sensation thing, there's really not a lot you can do about that. That doesn't mean that he might not be able to go there a little bit and allow you to suck his dick now and then. For some guys who don't like blowjobs, it's not about the blowjob itself. It's not about getting their dick sucked. It's about the point of orgasmic inevitability and the orgasm. And suddenly that sensation, having their dick sucked, having a tongue working over the head of their cock, is just too intense. It's painful. Some women have a similar experience during cunnilingus, where as they're climaxing, the pressure on their clit or the tongue on their clit or the lips on their clit is too much, too intense. And if their partners take the tack of really driving the point home when their partner is getting close to orgasm and doubling down on the intensity level, that can leave somebody not wanting to have their pussy, not wanting to have their dick sucked. Because that moment when you begin to climax and really all those nerve endings are on fire, that can be too intense. So the deal you may be able to make with him, and again, this is a conversation you need to have with him about his dick, not about me with mine, is that oral can be foreplay, that there can be some cocksucking that gets folded in around the edges of what for him are his primary interests: mutual masturbation, PIV, anal if you guys are doing anal. And then you can progress, you can move on to a sex act and to a mode of climaxing where the sensations won't be so intense. So have the conversation with him, draw him out. There's nothing coercive about asking someone to really unpack for you why it is that something that a lot of people enjoy and that you enjoy isn't something that they want to do. Because you might be able to find a little zone of compromise, or you might come to a better understanding and more empathy for your partner about why this is, as long as you guys are together, this is off the menu. A lot of folks love the treasure hunt of shopping at used clothing stores. Personally, me, I love the treasures, but I hate the hunt. However, with ThreadUp, you can look for cool clothes without having to leave home or your office computer. ThreadUp makes it easy to find the brands you love at unbeatable thrift store prices. ThreadUp is the world's largest online thrift store with over 35,000 brands at up to 90% off retail price. Think Free People dresses for $10, J. Crew jeans for $12, and Kate Spade handbags for $30. Forget sifting through racks. ThreadUp makes it super easy to shop by personalizing your experience. Use the filters to save your sizes, favorite brands, and price range to find exactly what you're looking for and to find it fast. Every item on the site goes through a 12-point quality inspection process, ensuring the items are in like-new condition. Many are even brand new with tags. Better yet, ThreadUp offers free shipping on qualified orders and super easy returns. Show your wallet who's boss and don't wait another minute. Right now, ThreadUp is offering Savage Lovecast listeners an extra 30% off your first order. Go to threadup.com/savage. That's THREDUP.com/savage for an extra 30% off today. We're going to take a quick break from your calls to speak with longtime friend of the Savage Lovecast, longtime Savage Love guest expert, Mistress Matisse. You should be following her on Twitter if you give a shit about social justice and where that movement intersects with sex workers' rights. Hey, Matisse, thanks for joining us.
Hi, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted you to come in because I wanted to keep having a conversation about FOSTA SESTA. And a lot of people only just heard about it because it was the reason the passage of FOSTA SESTA by the Senate and the House, the reason that Craigslist yanked down their personal ads last week. And that woke up some folks to the fact that there was some draconian legislation that was on the march, hasn't been signed by Trump yet, is not law yet, but it is coming. So for people who've only just started paying attention because of Craigslist, what is FOSTA/SESTA and why should they be concerned?
It's a bill that was recently passed by the House and the Senate by a fairly veto-proof majority, I fear. And it's a very, very bad law that's going to hurt a lot of people. All kinds of people, even people who were not, the intention of the law to target are going to be harmed by this, as we see in the closing of Craigslist Personals, which had nothing to do with sex trafficking, but are going to be collateral damage. There's going to be a lot of collateral damage.
So these bills ostensibly target sex traffickers who are trafficking people who are doing sex work under duress. This is the argument that the supporters make. People being trafficked under duress, doing sex work, not of their own free will because they're being pimped or coerced, or they're minors who've been trafficked. And these bills make internet sites criminally liable if people are being trafficked on their platforms like Backpage, like Craigslist, like Christian Mingle and Farmers Only, potentially, too, in the end.
Yes.
And it's a carve-out to legislation that previously protected internet sites, platforms, from activities that people engage in on those platforms. If I defame someone on Twitter, you can't sue Jack at Twitter because I defamed somebody on Twitter.
Right.
This upends the freedoms that made the internet the internet.
Yeah, this is gonna change the internet as we know it if it goes into law, and we have every reason to think that it will. It is a censorship package that is cloaked in the language of saving trafficking victims. Well, all that stuff was illegal before. It's always been illegal to traffic people. It's always been illegal to pimp people. It's always been illegal to sexually exploit someone in any way, in any time or place, including the internet. That's already illegal. So there was some people talk about a loophole. They were closing a loophole. No, the Communications Decency Act of 1996 contained a provision 230, that said that a website was not responsible for things that its users posted on it, like Twitter, for example, or Facebook, or any other place where you have posts.
But the posters are responsible.
Yeah, you're responsible. The site is not. And that has enabled us to have the internet as we know it. This is going to gut all of that, and it's really hard to say exactly what's going to happen, but the people it's going to fall on most are sex workers.
And one of the things that the internet, as we've known it up till now, did was it made doing sex work safer for people who are doing it of their own free will, and slightly paradoxically and a little difficult to talk about, also for people who weren't doing it of their own free will.
Yes.
And this law is going to drive sex workers off the internet, make sex work more dangerous for everyone who is doing it for whatever reason that they're doing it.
Yes.
And the people pushing it insist that they're doing this to protect or save or rescue sex workers, when what they're actually doing is making sex work more dangerous for anybody who might be doing it.
Right. They really are. This is not going to protect anyone from being trafficked. It's not going to help anyone who's being trafficked. All it does is provide a way for the federal government to go after websites. So there's no individual people being saved in this bill. It's all about the government wants to take a shot at these fat, juicy, money-rich targets, and this is how they're going to do it. And they want to run sex workers out of the public sphere because the public sphere has become the internet. They don't want us there. This is literally like the online version of them driving a bus and loading us all onto it and taking us to jail. I mean, we're not allowed to be present anymore.
Unfortunately, most people aren't sex workers. A lot of people who don't do sex work or don't know any sex workers personally buy into the sex negative bullshit and the stereotypes about sex work and think, well, so if this makes it harder to do sex work, people shouldn't be doing sex work in the first place. I'm all for it.
Well, okay, so it's going to affect you, though, because personal ad sites are going to shut down. You, as an individual person, will not be able to talk about sex, even non-sex work sex, but just regular sexy stuff, without risking the wrath of the federal government. It's a censorship bill. It is a censorship bill.
How is it going to prevent people from just talking about sex on the internet?
Because whatever site you're talking on now has, and see, this law is written so that it applies retroactively, which is a very unusual thing in a law, that something you did when it wasn't illegal could become illegal retroactively.
Oh my God, I wasn't familiar with that aspect.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I see people on Twitter saying they're going back through their posts and eliminating sex workers I know on Twitter, like deleting posts that they posted 8 years ago where they talk about doing sex work.
So yeah, we have to erase ourselves from the past as well as the future.
Oh my God.
And so if you've been talking about sex, because if they use phrases like promotes or facilitates, that's a very elastic phrase. If I say, hey, sex work is great, am I promoting it?
When I have sex workers on my show and I talk about how to do sex work safely, when I advise people who write into me that they might want to think about hiring a pro, you want to have that kind of three-way where the third person evaporates the instant it's over.
Yeah. You can't say that anymore. You will not, legally, but you will be committing a crime if you say that.
Oh my God, I say that all the time.
Yeah, you talk to your lawyer. I'm not even kidding you. You should, because there could be a problem.
That's been in my column probably over the last 27 years, dozens of times. And if it's retroactively applied, do I have to go back over the 27 years and eliminate those columns, delete them?
You should talk to your lawyer. I'm dead serious.
Okay, so that's the problem for the sex advice columnists of the world. When Craigslist Personal shut down, I began to hear from people who were swingers, from people who had like really obscure out there kinks and they were looking for other people who shared them, from people who were closeted and they preferred Craigslist Personals because it was totally anonymous. You didn't have to register. You didn't have to give them your own email address, that it was double blind somehow. There's a way to put on Craigslist without it ever being able to be traced back to you. That is not the case for OkCupid. That's not the case for Christian Mingle or Farmers Only, which is why those weren't the preferred sites, not of people even doing sex work, but people with kind of out there sex lives who were looking for, a dude to cuckold you with your wife or whatever. And I started hearing from those people the minute Craigslist Personals went down. Yeah,
all that stuff is going to go away if this goes through. And it's not that the people themselves and individually will be chased down by the feds and arrested for posting an ad, but the site is simply not going to allow them anymore. They don't dare. They saw what happened to Backpage a year or two ago. They've seen the damage this can cause, and they're just not going to do it. Yesterday I found out that a furry site, a personal site for furries, had shut down because they were afraid of being, come after by the federal government. And even though it's a site for furries,
are they doing?
No, they're not doing sex work. But it's a sexual thing, and people talk about sex. And there's no automated content filtering system that can weed out only sex workers, only those dirty whores, and leave the nice, good people talking about sex. No. It's going to have a completely chilling effect on all sexual speech because they can't be sure that, you're talking about having furry sex, but maybe there's a code and this is all about money. So basically no discussion of sex online, period. That's what they're going for. They won't achieve that, of course, but any platform that allows that kind of conversation is opening themselves up to a federal criminal charge.
And the federal government has a long and sordid history of persecuting people for speech when it is about sex. We've enjoyed a kind of sort of freedom multiple summers since the internet came online. It allowed people to engage online anonymously, to practice being who they really were and interact with people, and really kind of get used to identifying as X, Y, or Z, as a furry, as a gay, even just as a gay person. Also people doing sex work and making sex work safer. This is just, I don't know what to do. There isn't the panic and rioting in the streets that I think there should be about this bill.
People don't really understand that it's not really about sex work. It's going to hit sex workers the hardest, and it's going to hit the poorest and most vulnerable sex workers the hardest. They're going to be pushed back out into the street where they're in far greater risk of danger, of attack, and all kinds of crimes. So,
But even during the Obama administration, they were going after sex worker message boards. The Obama Justice Department, where they were going after sex worker message boards and pulling them down. And these were places where sex workers could exchange information about dangerous clients, offer each other advice. And so it's not as if we haven't seen sex workers in the online space persecuted in the past.
Yes.
But this is of a different quality.
This is a magnitude larger. Like we had that situation here in Seattle where the Seattle cops went and arrested, Sydney Brownstone did a wonderful story on it, how they're actually taking money from an In Demand, which is an anti-prostitution organization, an In Demand organization. And so that's some really great reporting about that, and that case is ongoing. But now it's going to be of an order of magnitude larger.
So all of you out there who are living your lives online, all of you out there who are meeting sex partners and romantic partners online, which is 70+% of same-sex couples now meet online, something like 40-50% plus of opposite-sex couples now meet online. All of that is going to go away potentially.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I am sure that some of the larger sites like Match or whatever will hire some lawyers and send lobbyists and all that stuff, and they'll be able to, because they don't really talk about sex in their kind of personal ads. But anything that discusses sex, and it doesn't have to be on a personal site. I mean, I can be on Twitter or any other social media, and if I talk about sex too much or the wrong way, they will shut down my account. I've had friends already be shut. Let's see. In the wake of this, Google is taking video files off of pornographers' performers' hard drives, and that's a legal form of sex work. They're not doing anything illegal, but still in all, their content has been stolen. They've had their accounts shut down, thrown off Twitter, thrown off Instagram, thrown off Facebook, of course. We're being driven out of the public eye as much as possible, and nothing good happens to sex workers when they're even more driven underground.
That's what drives me crazy. That's what makes me want to grab an In Demand end sex work person and shake them. Everything that they do, that they claim to be doing to protect and save and rescue sex workers, actually imperils sex workers. And at bottom, they don't give a shit because they think sex workers should be punished and punished endlessly. And if it makes sex work more dangerous, good. Those whores shouldn't have been doing that in the first place. It parallels for me the way right-wingers on abortion.
Yes.
If you make it illegal, there are still going to be abortions, but they're going to be a lot more dangerous and women are going to die and they're like, good.
Yeah. They really want us to just disappear and be unhappy and go away and not bother them anymore and not be our dirty, hoary selves anymore. And
so does this put websites like SWAP, Sex Workers Outreach Project, at risk?
Yeah, because another part of the bill is that it makes it illegal to personally facilitate prostitution. Now, SWAP goes out and does street outreach and gives out free condoms and hands out, and that's facilitating prostitution. We will no longer be able to go and do street outreach without risking, a big legal criminal situation.
So instead of recognizing that as a harm reduction model that makes people who may be doing sex work at this moment safer and likely to survive it, a transition out of it.
Yeah, we can't do that now. No one can do that.
FOSTA and SESTA.
Yes.
Most people are hashtagging it SESTA. Do you know what SESTA stands for?
Survivor something. Yeah, I don't offhand.
Go online, hashtag SESTA, read about it. Follow Matisse at Mistress Matisse on Twitter.
Well, do as long as I'm able, because I'll probably be kicked off soon.
Am I going to get kicked off Twitter? I tweet out my goofy sex advice column once a week.
I don't. You have to talk to your lawyer, man. I'm not kidding. This is very serious. So yeah, I'm talking to my lawyer. Everyone I know is talking to their lawyers. Please do follow me online as long as you can. There's an excellent hashtag, hashtag Let Us Survive. And that's also a hashtag for people who are fighting against SESTA and FOSTA. But yes, Mistress Matisse, that's my name. Come follow me at Twitter. I'll be keeping you up to date with all the latest updates as long as I'm there.
And it's passed the House, passed the Senate, has not yet been signed.
It hasn't, and it was signed, I believe, on the 23rd, and so
it passed on the 23rd.
Yeah.
So as of this recording, as of the moment that we were recording, Donald Trump has not signed this thing.
Not that we know of, and he probably would have said if he had. Although with this administration, you never know. But
the idea that asshole who has definitely patronized sex workers over the decades, we are hearing and watching Stormy Daniels on 60 Minutes talking about the sex work that she did for Donald Trump. That asshole, that he's the one who's going to sign this bill that's going to destroy the lives and endanger so many women and men who are out there doing sex work is just the hypocritical, appalling cherry on this shit sundae. I can't even process it.
Yeah, it does me. I mean, I think he's going to fuck over everybody. He's going to fuck us over too. And this is us getting fucked over really hard and really badly.
And you're going to get fucked over too. Hashtag SESTA, hashtag Let Us Survive. Get online, educate yourself. Say something to your elected officials. Come out.
Oh, please. Yes. In
support of sex workers, but also in support of your own right to be a sexual person and discuss sex on the fucking internet.
Yes.
Thank you for dropping in.
Thanks so much for having me, Dan.
Hi, Dan. I'm a 27-year-old trans masculine person in Chicago. I'm just got engaged to my boyfriend of several years, and we are looking to explore premarital counseling. I grew up super religious, not really into that anymore, but something that I really valued in growing up was that couples would meet with a pastor for several sessions before getting married. Now, looking at secular therapy or counseling services here in Chicago, not necessarily finding that as an option. And I'm wondering if you're familiar with that type of service or that type of counseling that is secular before getting married.
Book a session with a couples counselor. Easy. Rather than a premarital counselor, rather than some pastor who specializes in haranguing young people before they marry about what everybody's imaginary friends are going to expect of them once they're married. Speaking to a couples counselor, somebody who works with couples who are in crisis regularly about your future and perhaps identifying some of the trapdoors that this counselor has seen other couples fall through over the years and unpacking your relationship with this person and maybe in advance diagnosing some issues or areas where you guys aren't communicating well that over time could really present problems in your relationship. I think that would be really beneficial. Terry and I did that, not before we married, but before we adopted. We had a couple of sessions with a counselor who at the end of the second session told us we actually were communicating just fine and we didn't really need her and she felt bad taking our money and maybe we should just go talk to each other without her in the room. And that worked out pretty well for us. But you can do that. You can go see a couples counselor like we did. It was helpful and it was validating. And you don't have to get it at the Jesus shop. And most people who are secular, who are going to marry, don't go in for premarital counseling because they don't have to convince a priest to officiate, to sign off on behalf of the Pope and Jesus and everybody else on their nuptials. And so there aren't a lot of premarital secular counselors out there, but there are tons of postmarital couples counselors out there, and they have valuable insights that they can share with you and your fiance. And congratulations on your upcoming wedding. And I hope it's beautiful, and I hope you guys enjoy a long and wonderful life together.
Hi, Dan and the Tech Savvy at-risk youth. You always say that people don't call in with good news, so I figured I'd call in. I'm someone who suffered from death grip syndrome for about 10 years now, and following your advice for the last 2 years or so, it's gone away. My penis has learned to respond to the correct stimuli. And anyone else who has this issue where you can't get off the way you see in movies, just give it a try. I guarantee you it'll work.
I'm glad my advice for correcting death grip syndrome worked for you. And thank you for recommending to others that they follow my advice. Now I'm going to have to say what that advice is because you don't mention what the advice that you followed was that helped you correct your death grip syndrome. Death grip syndrome, of course, is my name for guys who masturbate with a fist that they just fucking tighten so hard, harder than any mouth or vagina or anus could ever tighten. And often they do it dry, and some guys can't come then from the subtler, damper sensations of mouths, anuses, and vaginas. And a lot of guys get really frustrated, and they quote unquote try to fix it by just going and going and going. And then in frustration, after having fucked for half an hour or 40 minutes, they pull out, jack off at the end, and come. And so it never gets any better because their dicks are always just sitting there going, yeah, if I just wait another 10 minutes, I'm going to get what I want. My advice for how to fix death grip syndrome, and you're not the first person who took it, not the first person who let me know that it worked. You have sex and you fuck for as long as you and your partner want to fuck. And if you don't come, you don't come. And you don't masturbate either. You don't at the end default to the death grip that created the problem in the first place. You starve your cock of the death grip, and your cock will adjust. New neural pathways will be carved from the nerve endings in your shaft, in your balls, in your taint, and most importantly and critically for most men, the head of your penis, all the way up to the pleasure centers of your brain. And in desperation, after 3 months or 6 months or 9 months, your dick will acclimate to subtler, damper sensations, and you will, with luck, fingers crossed, be able to come.
Hey, Dan. Calling in regards to episode 597, the woman who had 40 hours go by before she heard back from her first date. It just seemed like it was kind of a red flag that you'd let that much time go by in the first place. Like, it's great that everything worked out in the end and that she was happy, but as far as emotional IQ goes, letting that much time go by just seems like it fails like the golden rule test. You know, how would he feel if 40 hours went by and no response of any kind? Before you called her back, I just thought it kind of sounded like she was trying to date an asshole. After you called her back and got the full story, it just sounded like she was trying to date a child.
Hi there. This message is to the woman who went to a straight bar on gay night as a straight lady. As a lesbian, I would like to say that I think it's important to be very clear in these kinds of matters. There are plenty of lesbians who go to bar nights just to make out with people, and they probably wouldn't mind, even if you were straight, that you made out with them. But, you know, if you exchange numbers, if you're going to reach out to her again, I just think it wouldn't hurt to be super, super clear. Dan seemed to think that you were clear with her about your intentions, but I think it wouldn't hurt to double back and be like, hey, just so you know, really haven't ever been with a woman before, never really even thought about it before. It never hurts to be really open and honest, and I think that's really where a lot of hurt comes from women who sleep with other women or, you know, hook up with other ladies who actually turn out to be straight. That being said, also, as a lesbian, I can tell you it's actually kind of hot when straight ladies are interested and curious, and maybe she's into that. So just be clear, be communicative, be open.
Hi, this is a comment for the caller about going through TSA with sex toys. I used to work for the airport security TSA, and Dan's totally correct. Nothing shocks TSA agents anymore, honestly. But I wanted to add that trying to hide things or make things seem like they're not there is the best way to have a bag check and the best way to ensure your stuff is dug through. It is the worst possible thing you can do. Also, TSA doesn't care about your weed. The more you try to hide your weed, the more likely they're going to find it and then have to pass it off to the port police department. The TSA does not care about drugs. People, please stop trying to hide your drugs in your luggage. Roll them into cigarettes and leave them like they're fine. No one cares.
And we're going to leave it there. 206-302-2064 is the number here at the Savage Lovecast. If you'd like to record a question or a comment for a future show, give us a buzz. 206-302-2064. You should give us a buzz, of course, wearing a Savage Lovecast t-shirt. To get a Savage Lovecast t-shirt, go to savagelovecast.com/shop. You'll also find my books and mugs and some other cool gifts. Check it out. And if you like my political rants at the top of the show, you should check out Blabbermouth, the Stranger's weekly political podcast hosted by Eli Sanders with me and Rich Smith most weeks talking about the news of the week and what we can do in helping to build the blue wave coming to this country in November. Check out Blabbermouth wherever you get your podcasts. Follow me on Twitter at Fake Dan Savage. Follow Mistress Matisse on Twitter at Mistress Matisse. And please, again, check out the hashtag Let Us Survive on Twitter and read up about Sesta. The Savage Lovecast is produced every week by Nancy Hartunian and me and the tech-savvy at-risk youth and Nancy. We'll all be back at you next week with another installment of the Savage Lovecast. Thanks for downloading.